So I guess we'll start now. So hi everyone. Your cameras and mics have been muted. Even the chat has been disabled for now. But I'll enable the chat at the end of this event so that you can ask your doubts. So yeah, I'll just share my screen and let's get started. So we're here to learn about version control with Git. So the first thing that is important for us to know is what is version control. So right now on the screen, you see a classic definition of version control, but let's take an example. So suppose you and your friend are playing a board game, and in the middle of it, you're like, let's take a break and let's grab some lunch. So, but you're worried that someone might come in the room, like a pet or someone, and move the pieces. So what you do is you take a screenshot or like a picture of your board, which has the time and the date and all the pieces where they are. And you save it. And when you come back, if you see some changes, you can just refer to that picture back and place the pieces accordingly. So that is basically what version control is. It is like a checkpoint where you can track changes in your project and you can refer to them if you feel like you've made a mistake or anything. And one piece of version control is Git. So what basically is Git and GitHub? Git is a distributed version control system, which means that all the data will be stored on the client as well as on the server side. GitHub is just a cloud platform which uses Git as its core technology, and it saves your projects and also helps you track them if you're working with a group. Let's get started with installing Git. So you can just go here on, this is the official website of Git, and you can download Git for your system from here. Once you've done that, you can just go to your desktop and do a left click, and you'll see Git GUI here and Git Bash here. We'll be working with Git Bash today. So if you've like installed Git on your system, it's most likely that you'll see this. I have already opened my Git Bash, and so as to check the version, you can just do Git whatever version you have installed. So this is the initial step. Now, this is the crucial step so as to configure Git. So you have to set global variables for your Git so that it tracks. And if you're using Git with GitHub right now, this is an important part so that it connects your GitHub with your Git and so that it tracks all your changes. What you have to do on the command line right here is to write these commands, and you'll have your username and user email configured. I've already done this. So if I do a git config, I have my user email here and my username here. These first two steps these are the crucial ones to have Git configured. And if you've done that, then we can move. So let's start with making a Git repository. What a repository is that you have Git with you to track changes in a file or a project you're working with your teammates. So suppose you're working on a project and you need to save it somewhere as a checkpoint that you've done this and you've made some more changes and you need to track them and all. So that is what Git does. And let's start with making an empty folder on your desktop. For that, you just have to make directory, and let's name the folder. Now on your desktop, you'll see that you have a empty folder named cats. And yeah, so let's move into the directory. What you do for that is change directory. and you do cats. Now you're on desktop and into the folder named cats. Now to initialize your new repository, you can write these commands, or you can just do a git. We have now initialized the empty git repository, and it shows you the location with a .git file. And now you can do a git checkout. Now we are on a branch called main inside on the desktop in our cats folder. Let's move and see what git status tells us. What git status is that it basically tells us what we are doing right now. So it basically tracks. So it's telling us that we are on a branch main, which we just did, and we have no commits yet, means we have nothing committed on our git. And it's also telling us what we have to do next, which is we have to do git add to track our files inside there. Now we'll do that these are the subdirectories we have inside our git repository. To see all of these commands, what you can do. If commands which are with git, we have already done a version 1. We have already done a unit 1, and we'll see more of them in front. So now let's start with making a small project and seeing how Git exactly works with us. So we are inside a cats folder. So let's make an index.html file. So for that, we just need to do a touch index.html. As you can see here, it has created us an index.html file right here. And now let's do a git status and let's see what. So it says that we are on the branch main and we have no commits yet, but we have some end track files, which is index.html, which we have just made right now. And it's also telling us if you want to track these files, you have to just do a git add. So let's do that. We can just do a git add and put a dot here. And so what it's saying that we have no commits yet, but we have added a file for tracking. And now it's telling us that we have a new file named index.html in our repository. So what git add dot means that Git has added every untracked file inside to the tracking. So if you had done git add index.html, it would have done the same thing. But suppose if you have created a lots of file, like you've created a style file or a JavaScript file together, what git add dot does is it does tracks all of them together for you. So, and make our first commit. Now that we've made index.html file, let's work on committing it. The easiest way to do is git commit. It's the file name which we are committing right now. With a message created and index. That's it. It tells us that this is the commit message. So what the commit message is basically that you're telling Git that we have done this. Now, right, like suppose you're working on a big project and you've made a lot of changes, your commit message should show that all the changes you've made in a project. Right now, we've just created an empty index.html file. So you've just written that. To check all the commits we've made, we can just log. We've just made one commit, so it shows us this. And it also shows us the date and the time, just like in a picture in the previous example. So now let's modify the index.html file and make some changes and commit that. So like if I'm using a VS Code editor. So like if you're using any other editor than that, you can just make a quick Google on how to associate your editor with Git, because if you're using Atom or Sublime, you'll have to configure that with Git, and it has a special command with git config. So you can do that. Otherwise, if you have a VS Code, then it'll open up your code editor for you like this. And we have an empty index.html folder open. Let's see. Let's write this h1 here. Save the file, and then we'll close the editor. Now let's do a git status and see what it tells us. Now git is telling us that we have a modified file. So we first told git to track the file we've made, and now the git is telling us that we have made some changes inside the file which we have tracked. Right. So let's just commit the changes we have made right now. -a -m with a heading to index.html. That's all. We have now made a commit, and we have also modified our file. So what? Notice how I did not use git add again, and I just used a -a flag, which means that the git is already tracking the file, and now we have told it that we have modified it with a message. Now, if I had added a new file in the directory, so I would have had to do git add again, because git the a flag does not track new files; it just tracks the modified files. So now I'm not like happy with what I've written, so I'll just do open our code editor again, and I'll edit it again. We have the file again here, and I'll just quickly yeah. Emit. That's why this is fairly quick right now. Let's change the title to R to an H back here and write R. Save the file, and I'll close the editor again. So again, modified index HTML file, but it is not telling us what modifications we've made. So let's hit diff, which tells us that we have deleted this line. The negative sign tells us that we have deleted this line. And the plus sign tells us that we have added all of this inside a file. Now let's commit this change again. Now we'll do now let's do what it tells us. On main branch and nothing to commit, and working tree is clean. That is because our working tree, which is our directory, and index and the head are all in agreement. Now suppose I don't like the word feline. I'm just waiting it for it to load. Yeah. And I'll change the feline word to fluffy. And I'll close it again. So what Git does is now we have a committed file stored, And we just now made a modification. So what Git does is it also tracks backup files and temporary files. And we do not necessarily want Git to do that, tracking all our progress anywhere. So what is create and open a file named git ignore. What we'll do is just add these following lines to it. We'll do I want Git to ignore a backup file. Okay. And I also want give it, and then we'll close it. Now let's back all these changes and come in. Telling us that we have made a small loading editor backups. We have now also committed all our changes. So we have made another checkpoint. Now let's make a subdirectory inside our cats folder. For that, we can just do a make directory. And so let's do a git status and see what it tells us. It's saying nothing to commit and working tree clean, but we just now made another directory. That is because Git only tracks files. We just now made an empty directory and Git does not do that. So in like bigger projects, if you're working with a lot of people and you're making a lot of changes, what people do is just make a temporary uh, empty file, which is like a placeholder, and it's usually named git key. So let's do that. I'll just move subdirectory, and we'll make a file named dot, and if we see it, we have a CSS folder and we have a placeholder file named .gitkey. Okay. And now what we'll do is tell Git to track these files. Now I'll just add dot, and now let's do a git status. And now you can see that Git is telling us that we have a new file .gitkey inside our cats subdirectory. Now we don't necessarily need that file, so we'll just remove that. And now let's make a CSS file inside our CSS folder. We'll just do a git code site.css in our editor again. You can see we have the file open. And what I'll do here is I'll just basic style. I can't copy this, so I'll just write it real quick. Save it, and I'll close this. So now what we've done is we've added something in the CSS file. Let's the git status tells us. It tells us that we have a new file which we had, and now we have deleted that. And we have an untracked file called style.css. Now we also need to link this CSS file to our index.html file. So what I'll do is move a directory back. Paste and dots here. And we're back in the cats folder. And I'll open. And below the title, I'll just Save this and I'll close it again. Now we have made a lot of changes. You can see I've deleted a file, we've modified index.html, we have another untracked file. So to do all that, we can just do a git add and we can do a dot. It has tracked all our files. And let's do a git commit again. So as another checkpoint. What we've done here is we have added a simple now to see all the commits we've made by now, we can do a git log of all our commits. You can see this was our first commit right here, and this is our latest commit we've made, and all of these have a tracking number with them, so you can always revert back to. Now let's suppose we made a mistake and we deleted index.html. Now it sounds like a really big mistake right now, but let's trust it and do that. And to check if it's actually gone, we'll do an ls and we'll just have a CSS subdirectory. And to recover with that, we can just do a git checkout. Let's see if it actually worked. So I'll do an ls. Okay, so we have CSS here and we have our index.html here. So that is how you recover your file if you've actually accidentally deleted it. And now we'll see how to revert a commit. So suppose let's make an intentional mistake here. We'll open it. Waiting for it to load. And yeah. And I'll just delete all of this. And I'll just do an H1. Activity extensions. Okay. Right, this was a mistake. Leave this and I'll close it. Is my voice lagging right now? Wait, I'll just close my camera. If that makes a difference. Let's see. Yeah, so we just placed all the content in our index.html. And now let's commit these changes too, right? So what our command was git and we just committed our accidental mistake. And to check that if you've actually done it, we can do git log dash. One means that it's showing us the latest commit right now. This is the latest commit, which we did right here. And so like we recovered our deleted file right here with a git checkout. So let's try and use this command again. Do git checkout index.html and see if it actually works. So I'll open the code editor again and see if we actually got our code back or not. And we'll see it did nothing. We still are with our mistake right now. And so for that, to revert a commit, what you do is do so what it's telling us that we need to revert this latest commit, and we do not have the no edit means that we do not have a message, but we have reverted the latest commit, which was. Now let's and we'll see that we have our code back. And that is how you revert a commit if you've actually done that. And yeah, that was about it. So in this event, what you learned was basically configuring a Git for your machine, creating repositories, tracking your changes, and how to recover from simple mistakes you made in Git. To learn more, you can just go to the Git Everyday site. They have a documentation right here. They also have like a documentation. You have a reference, you have books, you have videos, and you can go to the documentation section of Git right here. And also Microsoft Learn also has some resources for that. So that was about it. I also had like, I'll just stop sharing my screen and also, yeah. So this was it about Git. And we also had like some questions about how to become an MLSA. So the applications are open right now. If you fill the application before 31st, it will be like reviewed for the next cohort, which starts in October. The application process is simple. Just go to their student ambassadors site and click on apply now. There's also this part of a section which people think it's very complicated, but it's not. The only key to that is to be genuine and authentic and make a video and tell them that you can actually lead them and you are passionate about networking with them. And yeah, that's about it. You also have a social media section. So if you think that your paragraphs are not that well written or there is something like that, you can, and but if you've written technical blogs or your LinkedIn profile is really nice and you have a great online presence, you can tell them that, you can show them, and that was also gain you some points right there. So I'll just open the chat. So if anyone has any questions, you can ask that. And yeah, obviously, if you're not selected, if you don't get selected, then it's no problem. You can always apply the next time. And yeah, that was about it. Does anyone have any questions? Just to add all the files that wants to commit. Yeah, git add dot does what it does is that it tracks all of your untracked files in your directory, and you can commit them after tracking them. If you like commit your files without tracking them, it won't work because Git doesn't know that they exist. Thanks for joining in, and I hope you learned something. And I'll email everyone the certificates in 24 hours. Bye. Yeah. Also, is this feedback form in the chat if you would like to fill that right now, that would be great. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.